Hey guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel where I'm trying to talk about, I am talking about all things comic, movies and so on and so on. As you know, my last video ended off on the whole Black Widow situation, but for today's video I've just decided to go on about the fantastic and just recently finished from the first series of Loki. And from what I've seen, everyone loves that show, and it was a fucking fantastic show. Well done, Marvel. Another win. It's just hard to know where to begin, you know. I know I haven't done videos on the other episodes, but based off the way the finale finished, I definitely thought I had to go and talk about the finale and aspects of the entire series in general, because it was a bloody good watch and very different to obviously WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. There's so much I would actually like to get into and to talk about, just to kind of describe why this show was, for me, it was the best show of the trio so far, and I think it's definitely the most impactful. That's not to take away anything. That's not to take away from anything else from the previous shows. I think it's important for me, first of all, to just highlight just how great this was. There were so many different aspects into it, whether it was actually the visuals of the actual program, the characters, the dialogue, which I'm going to get into in a minute. Every aspect that you would want of a show to be good was, like, everything that you think that would make a show good and keep you watching, it did. Many people thought that why would they have a Loki show? How would it work, considering obviously we know it was going to get a show, but how was it going to work, the storyline, etc. And it's fair to say that Marvel have delivered on all levels with this. The first thing I'm going to talk about, for me, whilst I could talk about the humor stuff and so on, which is obviously an important part for them, the one thing that stood out to me as to what made this series in general was actually the dialogue. For me, the dialogue was so important because it helped us understand a lot more about not just Loki, but some of the other characters as well. Even players like, what do you call it? I forgot her name. Is it B-15? The black one who we initially hated at first. Then by the time we got to the end, we kind of liked her because she kind of, turned babyface, basically, essentially, after she found out the truth about herself and the TVA. I felt the dialogue, the chemistry in particular, I think Mobius and Loki was it definitely was key to the entire thing. It brought us a lot. It helped us not only understand Loki more based on what he was, because remember, I think it was in episode 1 or 2, Mobius was probably goading him about what he wants, who he really is, something that we never really heard too much in depth from other characters in the MCU, probably except for somebody like Thor. But the way the dialogue, I thought, was so significant, especially when, I think it was episode 4. Was it episode 4 or 2? I think it was 4 when... No, I think it was episode 2. Before they went off to find Sylvie, the conversation that Loki had, I don't know if you remember, the conversation that Loki had with Mobius on the table when he was describing like how time worked, and I think he was talking about free will and something like that, and also tried to get Mobius to think about his position in the TVA and why he thinks that everything's not exactly as it is. These small moments really came to the forefront come the end, because as we saw Mobius, he eventually saw what happened to himself. He found out the truth about the TVA and knew that everything was a lie. Even with the dialogue with the writing, the dialogue with Renslayer, Sylvie, I can't even tell you which part I thought was the best. In fact, no, I can tell you what was the best. I feel was the one in episode 6, which you can talk about now for a little bit. Now, as we know, in the season finale, we were finally introduced to Kang the Conqueror, who, in my opinion, and I feel like I'm going off topic, I'm just reeling off everything as I go along, but so you gotta forgive me for that. Kang the Conqueror, who's obviously now probably going to be the big bad of the MCU, who, in my opinion, so far already seems to be a bigger threat than the already amazing Thanos. I don't know what you guys think about that, but let me know. But from what we've seen already, He looks like he's going to be a major force. Now, as we know that this Kang was a different variant, he gave the backstory, which I think is, I can't remember if it's exact to how it was in the comics, but it was generally very well written, which is the main point of what I'm talking about here. How he explained how time works, why he's able to do what he's doing, and what's going to happen in the future. It just makes you think not only about what has happened, but it really has got you interested and kind of psyched for what's to come. You know, this episode didn't have that much action. It was mainly between Loki and Sylvie. Again, the chemistry and the dialogue between them in that scene was just phenomenal. I mean, we got to see more about the character, or the main part of the character, which we know about them. We got to know more about it. Obviously, that what I'm talking about is trust. As we see, trust has been always issue with Loki. We've seen the trust issue with Sylvie. There was always this they became mutual understanding with each other, innit? Because they're very similar, gone through similar experiences. But obviously, as you can see, communications kind of broke down towards the end a little bit. Although I did get to see the kiss that I wanted to see, do you know what I mean? But we all see that it was kind of Sylvie manipulating him so she could get him out of the way to try and kill this Kang, who she thought she was doing the right thing. But yeah, that conversation between the two was amazing, because of how it brought around the whole trust issue again. So it kind of brought around their stories full circle from what we've seen from the beginning until now. Then that obviously led to the whole fight scene, which I thought was amazing. Yeah, so as we know, by the end of the episode, like, I feel like as she killed that Kang, she immediately regretted her actions. You saw the way she fell to the floor and the look in her eyes. So now it's kind of got me wondering almost what her end goal is, even though we kind of know where it was before. Like, where does her character go from here, based off everything she had talked with Loki, everything she'd been through, everything that she had heard from Kang the Conqueror herself? Where does she actually go from here? Because I'm not too sure. But I am looking forward to seeing her and the interaction with our main Loki again. So funny enough, I still love Sylvie. She's an absolute badass, and she's not someone like John Walker, who I just absolutely hate because he's a bit of a prick. Do you know what I mean? So there's that. And so again, to wrap up this point, in terms of the dialogue, the writing from the producers of Marvel, they have done an absolutely magnificent job. It's kind of tying everything together and making the interactions between each of the characters so significant, both in terms of like understanding more on the character and the character development, but in terms of where we believe that they're going to go with the story as it goes along. So this is one of the reasons why I feel that Loki was amazing. On to the next point I got written down here is, and it's kind of ties in with what it's partly of what I've just said before, but it's the ability to impact the rest of the MCU. Like, this entire, not even just episode 6, the entire thing, right from Loki was dragged from New York into the TVA with that amazing first episode, Glorious Purpose. We saw the implications of what was done already. For example, remember the episode 1, we saw the little screen with, I thought, what's the name of the Miss Time, Miss Clock side, I can't remember her name, but when explaining what they do, why they do it, and how the universe and the implications of messing with time. So we've seen it from the first, how things are going to be practically fucked up, really. This show really hammered home the impact on the rest of the MCU, because it talked about the impact on other universe, and like, it talked about the other, what do you call it? Like the I forgot the name, when you're talking about like the volcanoes and the stuff that ended certain civilizations. What's the name? But the biggest catastrophes, I forgot the name that they called, but how they looked at the effect of the biggest catastrophes. You've seen how that obviously had an impact on things going forward. That episode 6, like what I was touching on before in regards to lack of action, that episode was definitely most about the dialogue and the story. Some people I think are going to criticize for a lack of action, but I don't think that was the point of the last episode. We need to think that, listen, whatever they say we needed that cliffhanger, innit? Because as we know, Loki's going into season 2. They were kind of always going to hint Kang, although I didn't believe we would see him. But they needed to have like a proper, I don't know how you say it, a proper ending to show that the universe in the MCU is fully expanding. Which is why it was so heavily focused on like dialogue, especially between Sophie, Loki and Kang. People need to kind of understand that this wasn't this was an episode for pointless action, because even if there was action, which we got, it still contributed to the characters that were there. And then that action ended up having some implication of what happened, because as Sophie sent Loki back to the TVA again, although I've debated whether it's the same one, they don't remember him. Because of that, she went on and carried on what she wanted to do. So this is what I mean by not just having pointless action. There always has to be some form of meaning to it, and this is what exactly as they've done in that final episode, without seeing any other cameos, any other characters. They just showed us the whole branch of the timeline just opening up because of that action, because of that. And because of like the other films that we know that are coming out, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, we can now see where all the issues are actually coming from, which is the actual point of that show. So it was probably better that they didn't have like an ending that just ties the knots with a few questions. No, it's best that it ended like this. I mean, even throughout the episode, there were also other plot points which they started, but obviously you noticed they never finished it, which is what we are going to see in Loki season 2. For example, we learned more about Renslayer's backstory, that bitch. But anyway, we learned more about her. You saw B-52 or B-15, I can't remember, with one of the other officers in her timeline, in Renslayer's original timeline, when she was a teacher. She just said they need to talk. They left it at that. Then we know that when Loki got sent to, they don't remember him. So again, that needs further explanation. And the last bit also now, because we know that she will meet with Loki again. Loki would have known what's happened already. What's the relationship going to be like again between those two? And to be fair, it's that's just something I'm really looking forward to here, because it's like I want them to be together. I don't know what she's done is what the kind of, I don't know the level of impact she's had on Loki's mind, considering this was something that we've never seen him go before with these kind of feelings. You'd think he would have betrayed her, but funny enough he didn't, and you can see when she pushed him back, he felt extremely heartbroken. This is an emotion that we never thought that we would see from someone like Loki, but we're seeing it, and we have seen it. So it will be interesting going forward, to see whether Loki continues with these emotions. I personally think, I hope he has some of these emotions, but there's going to be a lot more doubt, or especially in his way of trust, because obviously his issue wasn't trusting. His issue was not being trusting in her. She was basically the opposite. So this is why I'm talking about the impact to the rest of the MCU. Obviously, just more of on a individual scale. How will he react to that? How will it change his character? And how will it change her character? Like when she finds out the mistake she's made. Knowing that Loki, I believe, is in Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness, it's going to be interesting to see them interact, because as we know, Doctor Strange only knows about the other Loki, not this Loki, because he was dragged from 2012. So how would he respond? How will he respond to this Loki, thinking that he's talking to the Loki that died in Infinity War? Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of character interactions that's going to be interesting. Even if it wasn't hinted at like directly this episode, but if you're thinking to the future, and if you know about some of the films and some of the characters that will most likely interact, then you kind of know, you know, the impacts, how this thing is going to fucking impact the rest of the MCU. And this is the reason why I believe that this show has done a very good job. It still managed to contain itself in its own story, but at the same time you're looking at its ability to kind of expand on what was done before and making us now understand the full depth of the consequence, because we knew those consequences of the Endgame, but now they're really showing that transition from Endgame into something more, and with the consequence. And now we're gonna have God knows how many Kangs coming across. It's gonna be interesting. Let's move on to Kang anyway for a bit more. Anyway, I know I mentioned him before. Why I believe he's going to be such a great character. The performance already from Jonathan Majors. I know I don't know too much about him before Loki, but his performance was on another level. This personality of this variant really showed, and even after me watching other people's reactions and videos to him, it just shows he's already made a significant impact on the MCU on such a tiny scale. Barely hasn't even done anything yet. I mean, you're looking at how charismatic he is, how cocky he is, because he already knows what's going on in time. He looks like he's going to be a very different villain to someone like Thanos. But because of what we know the variants of them have done and do, yes, as much as we love Thanos as the greatest villain in the MCU, this guy already seems like, even though he's physically not like Thanos, he has his own different goals. He seems like he's going to be a much bigger problem. And he has to, if what he's doing is affecting not only a world, not only a universe, but multiverses. Not one multiverse, but it is affecting various multiverses. And for that, you can't really deny he's going to be the main guy. I mean, the only question we can have is how long he will be the big bad, or if he will. Because as we know, since Disney purchased Fox, a lot of talk has just been about what's his name, Galactus being the big bad. So possibly, how much of a big villain is he going to be? Considering the fact he's the main villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I'm hoping, praise to God, I'm sure they won't, but I'm hoping that they don't try and kill him off anyway, because what he's dealing with is something that shouldn't be finished within like one movie or one show. I do believe, if anything, Kang the Conqueror himself will be the link. Not only the link between like what's happened here, what's going to happen here at the time, and Galactus. So Galactus will come through the implications of Kang. Kang will be around for a while, even possibly with Galactus. So Kang will be a while before he is eventually deleted and, you know, or destroyed, or however somehow time gets back to normal. But you've still got, but as a result of his actions with time and whatever, you're gonna have Galactus coming into the Fantastic Four. Yeah, I mean, it's mad. It's mad what this guy's gonna do. I can't. I didn't think you could see anyone greater than Thanos, but yeah, like, you don't even have to be as big, but you just have to have the wits about you, and he's got personality. I'm interested to see what the other variants will come across as. And we're gonna see like 5 different personalities. I know we obviously see the most sinister one, but I can't imagine what the other personalities of Kangs are gonna be. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see if like other Kangs get killed before we see this one. And also, I'm looking forward to knowing when Loki season 2 comes out, because if it comes out after Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I think is in February 23, then boy, we kind of already get the gist of how that movie will kind of end. Again, not on the greatest note, in my opinion. So Kang has really opened up a lot. He's opened up to be fair, Sylvie, sorry, but we know he's going to be about, and he's not going to be no mug to be taken for by even the new Avengers. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's my take on Kang anyway. And to think he's made like such a difference in like almost half an episode, or let's just say 40 minutes, he made that impact. Other issues or other characteristics which made up the quality of the show, again, I've touched on it with certain other characters earlier when I was talking about character development, but I want to focus like a bit on that because, as we know, like, this series only had 6 episodes, right? In episode 5, we were actually, well, to be technically episode 4, the ending credits, we were introduced to the variants of Loki's right at the end, which blew everyone's mind, undeniably, unsurprisingly, and all, right? In episode 5, we got to see we got to understand these characters quite a bit more. Yes, they didn't physically show you everything, but they gave you the backstories of some of them, and these are actually quite significant to kind of understand about different Lokis in different time periods. You know, I don't know who's your guys' favorite Lokis. I mean, we had Richard E. Grant as classic Loki. Was just an inspiring choice. It was absolutely amazing, fantastic. He was someone who's basically have someone with a lot of experience in real life anyway. So for him to come and play like a Loki with so much experience, he's old, don't remember, so he's been through all of that shit already, and so on. But just did things in a different way. His backstory, to learn more about the Thanos part from a different perspective and learn how that impacted him as an individual, was very damn interesting. Anyway, to know that he didn't actually try and stop Thanos, he went and did this, did that, things changed. And this is where obviously, universes can branch off. So yeah, Richard E. Grant, fantastic. Thank you, and sorry for that. Sorry for the tragic yet funny death. Let me just mention how that scene where he in episode 5 he sacrificed himself to give Sylvie and Loki more time to enchant the Alioth, I think it was. So he had that epic scene of rebuilding Asgard to use a distraction. He was laughing, and then obviously got taken out. It was so sad, so heartbreaking. But listen, he went out a hero. So yeah, again, we had also the Gator Loki, President Loki, Kid Loki. I never thought we'd see all these guys first of all anyway. However, when I watched somebody else's reaction, they mentioned on the screen in episode 1 where that one being turned into 5 people. I should have picked up that clue then. But I didn't, and it was interesting to see it here. Kid Loki killed Thor in his own timeline. You had Alligator with Alligator Loki, which funny enough, apparently they said that it was an original character, it didn't have a backstory, so they just slapped it in there. Which, you know what, they put something original and it worked, because a lot of people love Alligator Loki anyway. Sorry, one sec. I'm a bit big here, but yeah, I don't care. But yeah, Alligator Loki had his own fucking backstory about, what was it? Killing the wrong neighbor's cat. And then ripping off President Loki's arm. Now that whole scene where we learned more about, or those scenes where we learned more about their backstories, was actually very interesting, because you saw Loki's personality. Yeah, we know he obviously can't be trusted and so on. And we saw it used against himself, obviously just the different variances. So it's like Loki knowing, like, I don't know how you say it. He's suffering from his own personality, really. Do you know what I mean? You can't just, or Lokis don't even trust themselves. That's the best way. Lokis, to a degree, can't even trust themselves, which is obviously what we know about Sylvie herself. Do you know? So whilst we didn't get to see them much on screen, I do feel a lot of their backstories, they were quite impactful in terms of what we knew about them, and I do feel we couldn't know more. I do feel we haven't seen the last of Kid Loki, Alligator Loki. Now that we know there's a season 2, Loki might himself with the TED pad or whatever end up there again, or get pruned to go back there. I don't know where they're gonna go with that specifically, but in just terms of the character development, yes, it was short, it was brief, but it was still impactful. Again, to touch on other characters outside of Loki and Sylvie, You've got also like Ren. Okay, Renslayer was obviously the bitch of the program. We all know that she was the bitch of the program. She thought she's doing good, and it's a bit dumb because she's pruning everyone in a way to get your information, but she wants to get to know who's behind it all, but then she's just pruning anyone. Some in a degree, it's like I don't even know she knows what she's doing to get what she wants. It's a bit weird. It wasn't until she pruned Loki, he found out everything. Sylvie pruned herself. So I feel like she has to kind of prune herself, go to where they went to get to kind of fully understand, because I just don't see her. I don't see her listening to anybody else. And speaking of which, she did leave, but God knows where she left. That's another plot point which they've left open. We don't know where she's gone to, so that should be also very interesting. And I feel her character is very interesting because what we saw now, we've seen a bit more of a backstory that she was in the school. How are they going to get this information across to her? I think, again, I can't remember her name, B15 and the other guy. How are they going to get this information to Renslayer for her to believe that this is all fake? So for me, that's going to be the next step. So at least they've opened up her story. They've opened up her story a bit more. Same as B15, who went through this development of being a bit of a douche until she was somewhat convinced by Sylvie after she had been enchanted that she might have been telling the truth. Then eventually it turned out Sylvie was telling the truth, so she listened to her. What's it called? But and who else is there? Morbius, everyone's favorite sideman, Morbius. I mean, what do you guys think of Owen Wilson's portrayal anyway? First and foremost, I think it's been fantastic. I didn't think like he would be as good as he is, because I'm sure we're used to seeing him in more like what do you call it? Humorous roles. I forgot what you call it. Comedy roles. So to see him take on this kind of a role was different, and I feel he's done a good job. He's definitely had characteristics with. He's definitely, what do you call it? He's characteristic. He's definitely had a what do you call it? His chemistry. His chemistry with Tom Hiddleston has been nothing short of top notch. We've seen them go back and forth with each other. He's had to punish Loki, put him inside that room, which was brilliant, by the way, in a time with Lady Sif, which I'll get to in a minute. So they've been gone back and forth until you see there was a trust built. Again, the theme of the whole thing is trust. So trust built over time, over the course of the universe. Do you know what I mean? Between them, and it's like they always put hints that he was going to change, especially with them always bringing up the what do you call it? What's the name of the boat that they're always talking about? Is it Skyjet, whatever. I do hope and I do believe that they will show it. You know, we all thinking that they'll show it here at some point, but seeing as this thing has to extend, I do believe we'll see it, or at least we'll see something from his mind that shows, okay, this is the life he did live, but it's just forgotten. That's the reason why he remembers it, what a ski jet is, rather than not knowing like what it is at all. So I do believe we'll see more to Owen Wilson's character, and to see what he's going to do now that he saw Renslayer leave, and also the version of him that doesn't remember Loki. So these are a lot of different parts to the same character, you know, that we kind of just need the answers for. But again, this is Marvel dragging out the long game, so we've got so many different character developments to go through. Even in the next, I'm gonna assume it's going to be 6 episodes long. Yeah, let me touch on Loki again. Actually, I know I said away from just him and Sylvie, but there's something about his character development which is just special, and I don't know about you guys, but I am tempted to say that his character development in general over the entire MCU might be the best. I think it might be the best character development over the course of these movies. And I know it's a bit of a hard one to say because you've got to see what happened to Tony Stark through his development. You've got to see Thor, what he's gone through. But there's just something about Loki's one, and the reason why I say that is not necessarily just what's happened, because we knew he was obviously more villainous now, but we're seeing. It's like we're seeing him change very slowly from a villain. Yes, we know he's obviously been more heroic in the Infinity War, so probably because he just didn't want to get killed. But there's something about this version's Loki that seems different to the other. Obviously, he hadn't physically gone through what the other one had gone through because it got dragged out. But how do I describe it? It's like, I don't know. It's like he's getting. It's like. But then again, he could become more villainous just because of what happened with Sylvie, you know, the lack of trust. But let's just keep it onto his character development for now to see him kind of fall in love, catch feelings for somebody else. Although technically, yes, we can say it's himself, a version of himself, but guess what? It still makes sense. It still makes sense because it's more of a physical manifestation of him loving himself. Almost a metaphor, if you will. You know, we know he's generally been more of a narcissist and so on. So him falling for someone who's practically himself would make sense. And for me, it's something that we've never seen in the MCU. We never thought we'd see it with someone like that. And we would like to see, okay, let's see what would happen in this scenario. And for me, it makes sense. And I think it's a lovely thing, especially in episode 4. I mean, the feelings there before he was about to tell Sophie, so I keep calling her Sophie, Sylvie, what he felt, and then he got pruned. I mean, it was so heartbreaking. I'm not too sure what everyone's hate is. Like, there's a lot of people are hating on on the little love scene of this and that. This isn't Natasha and Bruce. This is Loki. Yeah, we love Loki. It doesn't feel awkward. Yes, we know what happened in episode 6. But this thing between him and Sylvia, I never felt. It's been awkward for the characters because they're not used to it. But in terms of us looking at them, it doesn't feel like it's an awkward and forced kind of thing. You're looking at two characters who have gone through similar experiences and have come together. And obviously, one of them has caught more feelings than the other kind of thing. So that is much more natural than the way they just kind of brought Natasha and Bruce together in Age of Ultron. If you guys get what I'm saying. I personally don't think there's nothing wrong with it. I do hope that they touch on it again, because I do kind of want him to have this part. Whether it works out with him and Sylvie in the long run, I hope it does. I hope it does. Although I do feel... No, I also feel he'll keep those feelings for her, because I do feel somewhere down the line something negative is going to happen to Sylvie, and I do think they'll reconcile properly, as in like proper trust. And then because of that, whilst Loki may technically still be an anti-hero at worst, I'm not too sure if I'll see him as... I'm not sure they'll turn him into a fully fledged villain down the line, but anti-hero at worst. I do feel this feeling he's now having he's had since Sylvie, that depends if she dies or not, this will now be part of his character. This will now be part of his character going forward, and I think that's a lovely thing. Me, I love the kiss. I don't know why some people are hating on it. I was actually waiting for it to happen. Whether it meant anything at that moment, we probably know. Actually, no. I'm going to say it probably did. Yes, we know she used it to manipulate him so she can go do what she did. But she still had that look in her eyes regardless. And I do think in season 2, those moments there will come back. People, I'm saying, don't write it off just because sometimes people, you don't like it or you don't think it means anything. Don't write it off. I think it will come back, and I think it's something that we should accept and be happy about. Like I said, because it's something we've never seen from him, and also her perspective. If we think about, she got dragged as a kid and she's been on a run ever since, so you do understand why she does have trust issues, you know. So we have to look at things at both parts of the arguments. That's what I'm going to say on the character development. Basically, like, for me, it's been thorough, and they've left space for more development for most of the key players in this series. The only thing now will just be to see how it ties in with like the films, if any of them are in some of the films. We know Loki's in Doctor Strange. It'll be interesting to see if Kang mentions the events of Loki in that movie, because I feel like now we're going to see other characters who haven't heard of certain other characters. Like, we would, at last minute, would we see Loki have a a cameo or something in Ant-Man. You know, characters, they're gonna obviously learn about. I feel they will learn about Loki, what happened there, Sylvie, what happened there. If we're going by little what was I saying? Little something. What was I saying? Oh fuck it, I can't remember. But yeah, what I'm saying is I feel there's gonna be interactions and lessons learned about certain characters. Other characters will now meet. So the next 2 or 3 films will be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how they put it in Spider-Man as well. And Doctor Strange. Will Doctor Strange reference Loki in some way? There's all of these questions and tie-ins that we kind of need to answer, and I'm fucking ecstatic and can't wait to see how it's done. But I do feel we'll see I do feel we'll see the branches in some of these films again. Do you know? Yeah, I mean, that's again, like I was saying, for the character, one of the reasons what's made this series even better. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, guys. Please tell me what you think in the comments as well. I do believe that Loki is better than WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This might be a big arc or a big claim, but I am gonna go for it. I'm gonna say it. It's the best. It's the best series so far. I do believe Marvel have put everything together in such a way, in such a neat way. I mean, yes, the last episode was action packed, but then it didn't need to be. You don't need action that don't make sense, and it was really character driven. So you've got that. You've got, what else is there? What else made this series so good? You got the visuals. The visuals in every episode was just outstanding. It's just, I don't know how you describe it. It's just like what we saw in the first Doctor Strange movie, when he was going through the different... Ooh, and I think that's where they could bring it up anyway, because in that movie, his mind kind of went across these different dimensions and so on. But, yeah, how they did it, it just looks spectacular, out of the world. Here's another theory. Has any of you heard this theory, right? I didn't pick up on this, but please let me know what you guys think. There's a theory in regards to Loki that each episode represents the Infinity Stones, and that's another thing we need to say. I think it's right. I think the 3rd episode, when he met Loki he met Sylvie for the first time and they had to go on that adventure together, it was purple. The last episode was green. I think the first episode was orange. What's the other stone? I can't remember what one was yellow, but it's a very interesting theory, which kind of hints that we haven't seen the end. I don't think we've seen the end of the Infinity Stones either. As we saw, the Infinity Stones just don't work in the TVA. So what happens with those as well? No one. I've seen other videos and I don't think people have mentioned it, or maybe I've just forgotten about it. So, the Infinity Stones. What if Loki happens to get those Infinity Stones somehow in the season 2, and is able to take them to wherever and then use them? As we've seen, they're able to use magic elsewhere. What if he goes and takes the Infinity Stones elsewhere and uses it for whatever reason? If he can't travel through the temp pad, he might be able to gather the Tesseract. So guys, let me know. No one's actually mentioned the Infinity Stones since, and I do think they're still gonna have a part to play. And I don't think we should rule that out. What else is there? I've even got notes. I don't even know what to say now. I think I mentioned everything here. What episode's good? Yeah, let me just mention this, because I also mentioned, like, it's not even just about Loki, but I've kind of mentioned, or I kind of think that trust is the main theme of each of the shows anyway. You know, it's interesting. Trust is heavily this. Trust was definitely Winter Soldier. You know, they couldn't trust the government. The Morgenthau couldn't trust the Captain Americans and so on. You know, Bucky and Sam couldn't trust what's his name? John Walker. Then WandaVision, you're looking at Vision starting to not trust Wanda because he suspected something was wrong. So it's interesting that, for me, it seems like trust is the main theme that's gone across all of them. Yes, there's other factors in it and other issues, but it's definitely trust is heavily integrated into all of these great shows. So yeah, guys, I mean, this is what I just think, and I know I didn't do an individual review, but I've tried to cover aspects of each episode as we've gone along in this review to say what I think as to why I believe Loki is the best show. I would say that probably episode 5 might be the best episode, though. it probably is the best episode that had a bit of everything. That's not to discount how good everything else was. Everything else was like very story driven. The dialogue, the writing is top notch. Yeah, this is my view on Loki. Absolutely fucking loved it, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna come to the end of this video anyway. I'm sure there's gonna be more things that I remember after I stop, but it is what it is, you know. What do you guys think about Loki anyway? How would you rate it as a show? Sorry, how would you rate it as a show in general? How good do you think it is compared to the other shows, and what do you think is going to happen now going forward in the MCU? I do think there's a lot of more implications, and it's definitely a massive transition phase. So let me know in the comments, guys. Please, if you can, give me a like and subscribe. Any comments, criticism, anything, I'm more than happy to take in the chin. I'll be more than happy to debate with you guys. Thank you so much for watching my long ass video, and I'll see you at the next one. Yeah, take care.